It is the first dissemination conference that we held here, but the work of our observatories has been presented before the Parliament a couple of times before, so it's a very happy occasion for us to be here again. And this presentation today of the Observatory on Political Parties and Representation is based on a paper by myself, Richard Katz, and the late Peter Mayer, who was co-director until very recently, and whose work was very much responsible for whatever positive achievements we have had. The premises of our interest in this theme, which actually, let me go back, is how Europarties can help in the creation of a European politics. The premises are that we start with an assessment of how European democracy reflects or differs from what we call normal democracies. Here we're going to have, obviously this is not a scientific concept, it is simply a colloquial expression that is used very often to remind us of the fact that the European Union has had a very difficult time developing its own democratic model, and therefore, more or less inevitably, we tend to compare whatever happens at European level with what has been happening at national level. And again, the question we ask ourselves, although most of you may think that the answer is already in the question itself, is there still a lack of democratic party government at EU level? And of course, the assessment we can come up with is based on three major elements. The inadequacy of the European Parliament's powers, which from our viewpoint, of course, is particularly important when it comes to control over the executive, but as we will see, the parliamentary model is not the only one we consider. Secondly, there is still a centrality of national governments in the election of the President of the Commission, and I would say also in the nomination of the commissioners. And the one thing we focus on even more cogently is the absence of a Euro-level party system. So for all these reasons, we see that the comparison between the EU democracy and the normal democracy is a problematic one. Again, our focus is mostly on Europarties and their system. So the aims of the paper, and of course, within the limits that I have in terms of time, the aims of this presentation will be defining the supranational European party system, assessing parties and the party system at European level, identifying reforms that might promote a party system at EU level, and investigating how changes in the social political environment might promote, hinder such development. And finally, evaluating the ensuing benefits and costs. Well, what do we mean by European party system? What would it like? Obviously, the first thing we have to do is try and define a party system in general. So, you will allow me here a scientific quotation by saying that Giovanni Sartori defined party systems by saying that parties make for a system only when they are parts in the plural, and a party system is precisely the system of interactions resulting from inter-party competition. So, in other words, you have to have a number of units that you can identify within a political system which interact according to some regular set of patterns. And the patterns with the units are what make for the system. So here we have to see whether at European level we have units that we can define as European, and whether the interactions that they entertain present some regularities that we can somehow identify. And obviously we could go into great detail. What we thought was the simplest way to present this, do we have at European level a system that is competitive or cooperative? Cooperative in this case is a bit of a euphemism, because we could have said collusive. And by this I don't mean that this is what we have at a European system, at a European level. What I'm saying is that party systems can be classified on the basis of how competitive they are. And of course, this doesn't depend only on the will of the parties, it depends on the context. If there is nothing to compete for, then of course the party system cannot be competitive. The other thing we're looking at is whether we have at European level a unique cast of characters. Do we have the same parties that operate across the various components of Europe, in this case the member states, and of course how do they converge at European level? And again, the other thing that becomes relevant is whether we have a unique or different set of issues and strategic party interactions at various levels, but most of all, since here we're talking about the European level, in different arenas. You already saw that there is a distinction between the electoral and the institutional arena. In reality, what we're looking at is applicable to all different arenas. And when we study party systems, we have to realize that the conditions of competition may differ between the electoral arena, the institutional arena, and the governmental arena. So how do parties interact within the government? How do parties interact within parliament? May not be the same way, and may be different from how they interact in the electoral arena. To give you some examples of what we mean when we talk about the uniqueness or the difference in the cast of characters, you can have some extreme cases, like you could have a case like Israel, where you have a single one single constituency in the whole country, and therefore you can say that you have a uniform cast of characters across the party system in the electoral arena, and this of course reflects itself in what happens in the parliament and in the government. When you look, however, at Belgium, you know very well that this is not the case. It's not the case because you have different parties that compete in different parts of the country. And so, obviously, we know that at Euro level, the situation is much closer to the Belgian example than to the Israeli one. What can we say, having said that these are the things that have to be assessed and compare to what happens in normal democracies, what can we say about the EU party system? Of course, in the parliament, the success of party families is evident. We only have about 5% of all MEPs who do not join EP party groups. So whatever the original situation, competitive situation is in the electoral arena, translates itself in a convergence of whoever is elected in the European party groups. Research has shown that ideology and value and issue homogeneity prevails within European party groups, so this is also a positive conclusion that we can draw from our empirical observations. On the contrary, however, there is still a prevalence and predominance of national parties in terms of the organization of the parties themselves and in terms of candidate selection procedures. We have heterogeneity of party systems in the different arenas, not only in terms of the identity of the parties that you find in the electoral, in the European Parliament, in the Council of Ministers, but also in terms of how the patterns of competition are structured. Finally, we have low level of electoral transnationalization because what we have is 27 different elections, and therefore there is a very scarce homogeneity in vote distribution for the various party families in different member states. So now we come to the promotion and what can be done for the promotion of the European party system, and how can these reflect on the future evolution of parties and their ability to provide more legitimacy for the whole European Union structure. There are two main institutional options, I was saying, both difficult to pursue. The presidential and semi-presidential system option and the parliamentary option. We also have three areas of potential Europarty involvement: the European Citizens Initiative, the new subsidiarity formula within the Treaty of Lisbon, and the designation of candidates to the presidency of the Commission by Europarties. These, of course, do not entail any further constitutional reform, so these are the ones that are on the table now. I'm told that I don't have much time left, so I will not explore in detail the two main institutional options because we do not feel that they can be in any way acted upon in the near future because they both entail very sweeping constitutional reforms. So on the basis of what can be done now and on the basis of what we have somehow assessed, our conclusions are that we are in a situation where national parties have difficulties in combining their representative and governing functions. This is something that all parties have. Whereas Europarties can concentrate on the articulation of interests. They can, therefore, better perform the representative function. What we think, then, could emerge out of the situation is a more, or at least this is what our auspices are. It's not something that we can say will happen. We would like it to happen. the solution then could come at European level through a more informal separation of powers. Obviously, the introduction of the direct election of the Commission would be necessary for this to come to fruition. And this, of course, would enhance the governing function of the Commission. And the European Parliament, with its increasing representative prerogatives, I think legislative is already sufficiently developed, could then take the other function which is necessary for a complete and harmonious democratic system. So this is how we see it, and this is where we are. Of course, our research is only at the beginning, and so we'll keep you posted. That's all I can say. Thank you very much.